Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Tuesday. It's time to leave. Obviously, I can't do this. It's Tuesday, June 10th. It's June 10th. All right. I've got it now. And all right, a little bit of a rush to get to the microphone, and that has set everything wacky for the day. And of course, we're getting ready to leave for a week starting on Thursday. So lots of time spent at the microphone yesterday trying to get new material prepared for you, which will be old material by the time, of course, you hear about it. And since much of it is more or less evergreen stuff or stuff that has been waiting a long time to get on the air, well, it'll be extremely old. But you'll like it anyway. I saved it for that reason. I thought you would enjoy hearing it and be edified by it. But it's a weird feeling coming to the microphone for the second show of the day, feeling like I've already done 19 shows this week. But it was going to feel that way anyway, given what's going on in the country. Let's see. All my Confederate flag, it's heritage, not hate folks have forgotten their favorite line and are panicking like crazy because some people have Mexican flags at the protests in L.A. and elsewhere. And, of course, Mexican flags have kind of been a part of L.A. for, well, as long as there's been an L.A., really. And everyone knows why. So, I don't know. The play acting is getting out of control. And, of course, the Overton window pushers out on X and other social media, Chris Rufo and Stephen Miller and others, now just basically openly saying, we should just be arresting everybody who's brown. We should be arresting Gavin Newsom, as a matter of fact. Donald Trump yesterday spent his time saying, yeah, I think we should really be doing that. Or like, I guess, daring someone else to do it, which was interesting. And daring Tom Homan to do it, who has no arrest authority. But if I was Tom Homan, I would be doing it. Sure you would. And anyway, and then asked him, I think someone asked him point blank, so what's the crime that you would arrest Gavin Newsom for? The crime was running for governor. So, oh no, he was just joking, just like Rush Limbaugh was just joking all those years. Anyway, so now we're threatening to arrest governors, although it isn't the first time that Trumpers have decided that the right thing to do is to go and snatch a governor up and put her away, and now Trump's considering pardoning those guys. So I guess this is supposed to be a signal. I'll pardon you if you somehow foul up a citizen's arrest of Gavin Newsom. I don't know. Anyway, it's, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's getting worse. It's just that their side, their panic is getting more palpable, and they're saying wilder and wilder things. In addition to, this is all the worst of the worst, and they're terrorists, etc., and there's an invasion, and look, it's an invasion because they have flags. That's the traditional symbol of an invasion. Sure, whatever. Meanwhile, of course, invading the Capitol building with Confederate flags, that's just, regular and white and awesome. Anyway, it's weird, wild stuff. And as it turns out, there are now circulating pictures of the troops who have been dispatched to L.A., and I understand that it is now alleged that there or purportedly another 2,000 National Guard troops being federalized and sent to L.A. for a total of 4,000, although they've been running around saying 2,000 troops for like 3 or 4 days now, and about 500 of them have actually made it there. There's supposedly pending orders for all this. But by the way, we're going to have to wait and see. In about 2 weeks, we'll find out. There'll be exclusive reporting in one of the big newspapers that there were no paperwork for any of this, no orders given. It was just telephone tag between Stephen Miller holding down the auto pen at the White House while Trump was at the UFC fights, and maybe Pete Hegseth, maybe not, and, somebody somewhere. No chain of command stuff going on. Just phone calls from one person to another. Well, didn't you hear me say that there should be troops there? Or the president, he said something about it. I feel pretty sure that he wanted to have troops there. So just get them out there and go do it. right? I think that's probably what will be uncovered, and so do you. To tell you the truth, I had said that yesterday when I saw the pictures of the National Guard troops sleeping on the floor somewhere, like in federal building warehouses, parking lots, large utility rooms, whatever, and because no one had done anything to prepare for the arrival of the troops. Because, of course, I'll be so good at the military, your head'll spin. Yeah. Well, you know what happens at the end of the day after the first day of marching around doing nothing out there? They got to go to sleep. Where are they going to sleep? I don't know. Now, Donald Trump won't even visit a city unless he knows that he's got a luxury hotel there to go to. Or, of course, a luxury plane to fly around on. Now, let him go do that, right? The plane is in Texas. Fly to California. Let the troops rest on his new luxury plane. They're going to take it apart anyway, right? Give them a place to rest. A little R&R on the plane. So there they are, lying all over the floor, rifles strewn all over the place, lying, at best, putting their heads on their backpacks, trying to grab a few hours of sleep. And what do you know? And then they decided to mow the lawn right outside of KITM World Headquarters, right during the showtime. So everything's in chaos, but they really gave no thought whatsoever to the logistics because logistics are paperwork, and paperwork is not a thing that Donald Trump or any Trumpers actually do, right? And I'm amazed that they managed to get anybody to go to Los Angeles at all, given that pretty, I would expect pretty normally, well, you got to go to L.A., because something. There's riots, and you got to go do something about it. There's not riots, but that's what they're telling them. Nobody asks to see the orders. Did we get orders from somebody? Have we checked? Have you called the boss to find out whether we have genuine orders? And yeah, I would be very interested in finding out whether the commanding officers who dispatched people, who actually deployed people without any equipment for sleeping for the night, got orders on paper from anybody. And one of you out there who is goes under the screen name on Blue Sky of a doll in every pot, which I like that one. It's Tobelz, Tobellz on Blue Sky. Just picking up on that and riffing on it and saying, yeah, in 3 weeks, give or take, I guess 2 is the usual thing that Donald Trump says, 2 weeks, we're going to learn that there was no chain of command for this deployment. Just a game of telephone from Miller to Hegseth to the Pentagon to the California National Guard General. Maybe not even involving that many people. But he goes on with this at some length, right? The New York Times will have the scoop with all the sources, and they'll write it up as a daring new approach to domestic military logistics. But some critics say not having food, fuel, or a place for soldiers to stay is bad, but others disagree. And I can only agree because I wrote the first part of it, and then I liked your answer to the second. So, all right. So now they are out there respecting the troops and supporting the troops by having them sleep on. And this really does look like it's the basement of a federal building somewhere. This is from the San Francisco Chronicle. This article, which is paywalled, but the photo says everything you need to say. It's about 1,000 words, I would say. State troops sent to Los Angeles by the Trump administration without the approval of California Governor Gavin Newsom, who's now suing, by the way, just as I thought he might, given we were skimming the statutes yesterday. And yeah, there was this part about, you're supposed to get the approval of the governor. You didn't. So is all of this illegal? I mean, they appear to be there anyway. Someone gave them trucks and gas, and now they're there, even if they're sleeping. But, did you actually go through with what was required? And what was the trigger supposed to be? Well, they were saying, of course, rebellion. Sure. No, not at all. I wouldn't be surprised if this only lasts a couple of days in court, but, troops are troops. They're sitting there. They're lying down. Anyway, that's what the San Francisco Chronicle was reporting. Troops sent to L.A. by the Trump administration without the approval of the governor were expected to sleep on floors or outdoors, a source told the Chronicle. Now, the whole city's been burned to the ground, obviously, by Antifa super soldiers. Where are they going to sleep outdoors? It's all on fire. It isn't, of course, but seriously, it's a cityscape where they're just going to bring tents and, use their shovels to pound tent stakes into the asphalt and just sleep there? Okay. Well, I don't know. Put them in a hotel or something. There's got to be hotels in Los Angeles. Well, maybe Qatar would like to build a luxury hotel for them to sleep in. Send some luxury planes. Some yachts can anchor offshore and they can sleep there. Is that not happening? Why not? No one knows. Anyway, like he said, so good at the military. But my head's spinning. I can feel that. Meanwhile, as I said, I did see somewhere, I don't know if I put it aside. Well, actually, maybe I did. A check pocket. Here's some of the great calls for punishment of everybody except themselves over Los Angeles. All these similar reactions. Let's go back and take a look. All right, now this one is something different. I'll save that for later. But here's ABC News' report on Trump calling for Gavin Newsom's arrest. Trump said it would be, quote, great to arrest Newsom. Their stormy relationship and the politics at play. I mean, that really undercuts the whole seriousness of it with that stupid second line. But, okay, Orrin Oppenheim, did you write the headline for this? Rewrite it if you did. If not, go complain. The Democrat governor, wow, I don't like this at all, said Trump has exploited the situation for political gain. All right, that's the subheader. President Donald Trump, I don't like this report at all. I should pick something else. But maybe it'll be so terrible it'll be entertaining. What do you think? President Donald Trump and California Democratic Governor, finally call him Democratic, Governor Gavin Newsom are engaged in a bitter fight over the handling of protests against immigration and customs enforcement continue in Los Angeles over the handling of protests against. All right, well, that needs some work already. This, you know what? This sucks. Holy crap, ABC News. This is garbage. Let me see. Does this make any sense? Trump and Newsom are engaged in a bitter fight over the handling of protests against ICE continue in Los Angeles. Nope. That don't make no sense. And both are framing their confrontation in familiar, sharp political terms, not, violating the law or shredding the Constitution. No, they're both equally political, On Monday, the president said it would be a great thing if border czar Tom Homan arrested Newsom. In response, the California governor fired back that the comment is an unmistakable step toward authoritarianism. But just politics. One guy said, screw law and the Constitution, and the other guy said, no, don't do that. In a sign of how much politics is driving confrontation, Trump, when asked on Monday afternoon by ABC News what crime Newsom had committed to warrant his arrest, Trump said the governor's primary crime is running for governor because he's done such a bad job. That's not an answer. You're under arrest. So it's such a bad answer, you're going to jail. I don't know. Newsom responded on X, Donald Trump admits he will arrest the sitting governor simply because he ran for office. Yeah, well, there it is. I don't know if that was the best use of it, but there it is. With the protests, Trump, who has characterized them as violent insurrectionist mobs, I didn't use his voice for that one, and Gavin Newsom, he loves that, inspired riots, which he capitalized, has deployed National Guard members to Los Angeles. Newsom has asked the administration to rescind the deployment and said Monday that he's suing the Trump administration, claiming Trump illegally federalized the National Guard. He did. But Trump is not only criticizing the protesters, he's blasting the Democrats leading the state and the city, calling them failures because he's a wrinkly orange prune. The very incompetent, quote, governor, Gavin Newsom, really, the president, and mayor, that in scare quotes, Karen Bass, should be saying, thank you, President Trump, you are so wonderful. We would be nothing without you, sir. That's all in caps, by the way. Trump wrote on his social media platform on Monday, and his psychiatrist provided no medications whatsoever for him. Instead, they chose to lie to the people of California and America by saying that we weren't needed and that these are peaceful protests. Trump has long been critical of the leadership of most really any Democratic-run state, often focusing his ire on California. The situation separately gives Trump the chance to take high-profile action on immigration enforcement. They're giving it to him. They're handing it to him here. A key issue for the president during his 2024 campaign and one that has remained a priority during the first few months of his administration. So this is really just a policy win in their view. Okay, sure, ABC. A recent poll from Marquette Law School taken in early to mid-May found that Trump had positive or even around even job approval for border security and immigration. Newsom, for his part, has explicitly accused the White House of exacerbating the situation for political gain. Well, that's true. They want a spectacle. They want the violence, he said in an email to supporters sent through his political action committee on Sunday night. They think this is good for them politically. And since then, he's posted a blizzard of attacks on Trumps via social media. And that's it. And that's it. For some strange reason, they're doing bang-up job on the editing there. The White House responded to an ABC News request for comment late Monday afternoon. Oh, and here it is. Wow. This is, I think, the first time I've ever seen a news outlet say they requested comment and got it, and then just set it up as, we requested comment and they answered. That, as opposed to just running with the comment, which is, I guess, what they usually do. But, yeah. I mean, they get comments all the time. It's not like no one ever comments. It's just weird. Do you care who it is? I mean, it's Abigail Jackson, so not Stephen Chung and not Caroline Levitt, but okay. And it's Gavin Newsom sucks. Bobbity, left wing, something radical. Newsom and Trump have long been at odds. You know what? This article has been terrible top to bottom, so I don't think I'm going to continue with it. I think I have established that Trump has called for Newsom's arrest and is being stupid about it. And that's the only value this particular ABC article, or maybe any ABC article, has ever had, and it's time to leave. Okay. But speaking as I was of other calls for equally stupid things, once Trump did it, and the equally stupid Tommy Tuberville did the same thing. Gavin Newsom answered him, saying, stick to football, bro. This Tommy Tuberville calls for Gavin Newsom to be arrested. Lock him up. L.A. looks like a third world country. Anarchists are in charge. Law enforcement is being attacked, and the rule of law is non-existent. I mean, that's just a stupid assessment. But Newsom answering him here, Alabama has 3 times the homicide rate of California. Its murder rate is ranked 3rd in the entire country. Stick to football, bro. All right, not too bad. Better than expected, I guess. Let's see. Other calls for stupid stuff. Let's see. If I remember correctly, this one here. Oh, yeah, right. Brendan Nyhan caught Christopher Rufo out on this one. And his commentary on it. Every day the authoritarianism grows. Christopher Rufo is here calling for the Trump administration to, quote, dispatch unmarked vans to follow key agitators and snatch them from the streets while the media are not looking. I suspect that's already happening. And it has been. I mean, it's been happening in the context of pro-Palestinian protesters, certainly. That's how we got where we are. I guess in the next 2 days, I would imagine, we'll start hearing the stories of leaders of, or organizers of, or even just people who are nearby the organizers of protests in Los Angeles will likewise be snatched up. But it'll all be under cover of immigration enforcement, as was the case with the Palestinian protests. So there you go. He's just out there saying it on his own, like maybe Substack. The president should direct federal agencies to create a hard, soft, or visible, invisible approach to riot control. 2 extremely well-known terms, hard, soft, and visible, invisible. Sure. I guess that's supposed to make them sound tactical, and it's not a riot. So in public, the National Guard should mobilize with enough manpower to smother the protests and avoid protracted conflict or hand-to-hand combat. Not that anyone's offering it, which carries with it the highest level of risk. At the same time, as we saw demonstrated in Portland, Oregon during the George Floyd riots, as he says it, post-murder, of course. The agencies should dispatch unmarked vans to follow key agitators and snatch them from the streets while the media are not looking. The most effective riot control is to take movement leaders off the field, infiltrate their networks, disrupt the flow of funding, and roll them up in federal investigations. Denying the left trained protest leaders now will create a strong precedent for the rest of the president's term. Of course, if you say what they ought to do is roll up in unmarked vans and snatch up Chris Rufo and take him off the street while the media is not looking, because the most effective moron control is to take their movement leaders off the field, infiltrate their networks, disrupt the flow of funding, and roll them up in federal investigations, you would be arrested for terroristic threats. So don't do it. Unless, of course, you're acting completely on your own and have an unmarked van. In which case, have a great time. Here's some paper towels. Okay, so kind of where we are today. Not terribly surprising that they would try to take advantage of things this way. All right, in other news, I do have a bit of good news-ish, sort of follow-up news to something I mentioned, a little more than just in passing, but it's been a while, and I was wondering, hey, what are the results of the election for the D.C. Bar Association presidency? You remember that Pam Bondi's brother, Bradley Bondi, was running for president of the D.C. Bar Association, and this was particularly worrisome because, of course, you might think, well, really, who cares there? But it's the local bar association who very frequently will be the ones to speak out about, say, qualifications for federal judges being nominated for the area, like the D.C. bench, or, for that matter, commenting on who should be U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, or whatever, things like that. And responding to that, and, of course, imposing discipline locally. Like if you are an outlaw attorney for the DOJ under Pam Bondi, and you pull some ridiculous stunt and you decide to flip the judge the bird and blow up the courthouse, and you find yourself facing disciplinary hearings, let's say. Should he be disbarred for dynamiting the courtroom? Well, for some strange reason, the president of the D.C. Bar Association has used his emergency powers to bar the disciplinary board from considering the case, or he has overruled them in some way, or has dropped the case entirely. Well, that was the worry, what would happen with Pam Bondi's brother in charge, that one of the few outside checks against Bondi and DOJ lawlessness was the Bar Association. So if they could take over and capture the Bar Association and say, professionally speaking, there was nothing wrong with Pam Bondi directing, let's say, Emil Bove or, shoot, why am I blanking on, Ed Martin to dynamite a courtroom. Well, I don't know. The D.C. Bar Association has no opinion on the professionalism of such an act. Really? Well, you got to put it in a newspaper. That's what the D.C. Bar Association is saying. Well, not hopefully if Pam Bondi's brother doesn't win the bar election. Well, guess what? He did not win the bar election. That's probably not a terrible surprise. But what might surprise you is that the winner, Diane Seltzer, won with literally over 90% of the vote. So Bondi, not a particularly successful campaign there. The results posted that I see here, just in from the D.C. Bar, says Carrie Johnson. Diane Seltzer defeats securities attorney Brad Bondi in a closely watched race with record turnout. So that's nice. Closely watched, yes, but not closely contested. Diane Seltzer, 34,982 votes. A 90.9% share, nearly 91%. Brad Bondi, 3,490 votes. I mean, the math is pretty easy. 34,000 to 3,400. So there you go. But he does save face and does crack the 9% barrier. Doesn't get to double digits, but 9 is as big as you can go without making it there. So a real accomplishment. Here's a trophy. Okay, so I thought that was of interest and good follow-up news. I'm glad that the Bondis won't be in control of the D.C. local bar. All right. other things to share with you that happen to be floating around, and I should be checking in on social media any moment to try to... Oh, you know what? The break is coming up. Maybe now would be a good time to check in on social media and see what else might interest you by the way of quick hits before we leave for the first break. And then I'll reserve some of the other things for the other side of the break. I'm going to have to go and grab this one too. Michelle Goldberg is said to have a wonderful piece floating around out there. Let me go and grab it so that it's sitting and waiting here. This is what autocracy looks like. I mean, that's not news per se, but it's opinion, and it's a pretty good opinion. So we'll take a look at what Michelle Goldberg's been lighting it up lately. So we'll take a look. I happened to just see one Nico Bowie commenting on the op-ed and saying, in the spirit of this great op-ed, he's calling it a great op-ed, and I have no reason to doubt him. Journalists, including Goldberg, must recognize that one of Trump's patterns is, he really did call out a good one here. 1, do something wildly illegal. Yes, he's pretty good at that one. 2, identify the name of a law. Insurrection Act, the other one that we were talking about yesterday that wasn't the Insurrection Act, 10 U.S. Code 12406 or 460, you remember? I don't. But do something wildly illegal, identify the name of a law, and then 3, proceed to ignore every limit in that law. That is a very familiar pattern. But the thing is, it freezes the journalists in place for the most part. The reporters have to report. And Michelle Goldberg's of the world are free to opine otherwise and be correct about it. But the reporters seem stuck in, well, the president maintains that this is entirely legal under the XYZ Act. The pattern is tricking papers into writing, quote, Trump is invoking a rarely used law, when in fact he is not. He is mocking a rarely used law instead. It's a good point, Nico. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's continue on. Actually, in the wake of having read Nico Bowie's comment here, a law professor, by the way, although I don't know. I guess I can find out where, because there's a little URL here underneath that says hls.harvard.edu. So that would mean Harvard law professor Nico Bowie, and I hope I'm pronouncing the names correctly here. But no wonder it's such a good point. He's a Harvard law professor. Pretty good. Okay, so I don't know. I'm not a Harvard law student, so I didn't know. But that's a very good point, and I'm pleased to be able to share it with you. Do something wildly illegal, identify the name of a law, and then proceed to ignore every limit in that law and every application of that law and all the precedent for that law as well. The pattern is tricking papers into writing, Trump is invoking a rarely used law. No, he's not. No, he's not. Maybe it would be wise at this point to follow that up with the opinion piece by Michelle Goldberg. I probably wouldn't have gone to it based on the headline. I mean, this is what autocracy looks like. I know that's true, and I don't know. What am I learning here? But I don't know. She's got a pretty good track record, right? And Nico, who makes an excellent point, says it's an excellent essay, so let's take his word for it and share it. Michelle writes, since Donald Trump was elected again, I've feared one scenario above all others, that he'd call out the military against people protesting his mass deportations, putting America on the road to martial law. Well-founded, I think. Even in my more outlandish imaginings, however, I thought that he'd need more of a pretext to put troops on the streets of an American city against the wishes of its mayor and governor, and then the relatively small protests that broke out in Los Angeles last week. And it is, as pretexts go, among the weaker ones that I've seen. It just wasn't that big of or bad of a situation. I mean, there were some cars burning, but I mean, like as others have pointed out, there are cars burning when the Lakers win, or the cars burning when the Lakers lose. So, local sports team victories largely produce the same result. But anyway, in a post-reality environment, it turns out the president didn't need to wait for a crisis to launch an authoritarian crackdown. Instead, he can simply invent one. Although we kind of have to hand that to him if it's going to work, because we can still, largely as the public, say this is a ridiculous overreaction and reject the idea that some in even the mainstream media are trying to hand us that there's any kind of riot going on. I think I saw some CNN footage circulating yesterday that I don't remember which of the personalities it was, but who was on the ground and reporting, and just I don't know was it intentional? Was it a slip? Was it, I don't know what, but others were not giving her the benefit of the doubt. She was reporting, picking up some of the spent, less lethal ammunition, the rubber balls and pellets and things that they fire at people, and showing it to the camera and saying the reason this confrontation is happening, or what the dynamics of this confrontation are, that the protesters are firing these things at the police, causing the police to fire back. And in what world do the protesters have, those weird plastic bullets? That they don't have that stuff. It's all coming from the police. It's crazy to say something like that. Was it Erin Burnett? Is that her name? She was problematic a couple of years ago during the various elections too, wasn't she? So I guess it shouldn't surprise anybody. But anyway, they decided to put her on the ground there to lie about that nonsense. But if eventually people just say this is a really dumb premise, a dumb pretext, there's just not that much going on, and this is like I think I said on Blue Sky, this is like the 17th time that the Republicans have gone on TV to insist that some major American city was burned to the ground, was entirely occupied by Antifa super soldiers. The law and order didn't exist there. Everyone was dead. Not even from fentanyl. They were all just murdered by rioters. And everyone can see that that's not the case. And this is a repeat tactic for them. So I don't know how many times they've done this, but I mean, they have done it in the past. And in the meantime, everybody can see that city's professional sports teams are playing games right there on television in front of everybody in that city. And we have like high-ranking federal government officials going on TV saying, nope, it's all been vaporized. It's all gone. Everybody's been murdered. 35 million people were murdered just every minute in Los Angeles. It's incredible, like you've never seen before. And people don't just say, this is too stupid to be tolerated as the premise for anything. I can't even allow you to continue in office having said this. But, the mechanisms aren't available to me to get you out of there. But we certainly can't, we certainly shouldn't be allowing the imposition of any emergency measures, let alone martial law, based on something that's so obviously and facially untrue. I mean, I don't know what to do about the fact that people consume that on Fox News and then just go home and say, well, I guess that's it for Los Angeles. It's gone now. just like Minneapolis and Portland, Oregon. They're just off the map. I don't know why people continue to pretend that they have news and weather and television stations and major sports teams in those places. They don't. They're gone. They've been flattened and population zero. I don't know how you get through to people like that. But I mean, there are live cams right now. You can go on the internet and say, show me a live view of that city. Oh, it's got buildings and people. They're working. There's people eating at hot dog carts. What were those crazy people talking about? Of course, now they can just say, that's AI. But if you're talking to one of those people, forget it. Okay. Oh, right. Michelle Goldberg. She had actual concentrated thought about this. But what sent me off on this tangent was her mention of the fact that we're in a post-reality environment. And in that post-reality environment, it turns out, the president didn't need to wait for a crisis to launch an authoritarian crackdown. Instead, he can simply invent one, and that's what they've been doing. But that's not enough for him. He's also going to arrest the governor. It's true that some of those protesting immigration and customs enforcement raids in Los Angeles have been violent. Oh, she's going to, see how reasonable I am? All right. On Sunday, one man was arrested, for allegedly tossing a Molotov cocktail at a police officer, and another was accused of driving a motorcycle into a line of cops. On the other hand, people have been arrested for what the police said was throwing cement milkshakes at them in the past, or whatever else. Such violence should be condemned, both because it's immoral and because it's wildly counterproductive. Each burning Waymo, though that is really funny, or smashed storefront is an in-kind gift to the administration. All right. But the idea that Trump needed to put soldiers on the streets of the city because riots were spinning out of control is pure fantasy. Today, is this Trump speaking here? No, it's from the LA Police Department. Today, demonstrations across the city of Los Angeles remained peaceful, and we commend all those who exercise their First Amendment rights responsibly, said a statement issued by the Los Angeles Police Department on Saturday evening. And those guys love hitting protesters. That was the same day Trump overrode Governor Gavin Newsom and federalized California's National Guard under a rarely used law. Nico, what do you think? Meant to deal with, quote, rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government in the United States. Then on Monday, with thousands of National Guard troops already deployed to the city, well, again, technically, no, they're not there. Were they on their way? Maybe. Was deployment legal? Don't know. But there was some presence of some people. But was it 2,000? Was it 4,000? It was not. But on Monday, with thousands, and it wasn't, of National Guard troops already deployed to the city, the administration said it was also sending 700 Marines. It was 500. Now it's going to be 700. And no, it's $1 billion. Just like everything else with tariffs or the amount of money you're raising or the amount of money that things cost, taxpayers, right? The numbers just ratchet their way up over the course of the day. The Los Angeles police don't seem to want the Marines there. In a statement, the police chief, Jim McDonnell, said, the arrival of federal military forces in Los Angeles, absent clear coordination, forget authority, but coordination, presents a significant logistical and operational challenge for those of us charged with safeguarding this city. But for Trump, safeguarding the city was never the point. But yeah, the police do point out that we now are using valuable police resources to make sure that the troops are safe, which the troops were supposed to come here to make sure that we were safe. I don't know. The whole thing is stupid. It's important to understand that for this administration, protests needn't be violent to be considered an illegitimate uprising, or any kind of uprising at that matter. The presidential memorandum calling out the National Guard refers to both violent acts and any protests that, quote, inhibit law enforcement. That definition would seem to include peaceful demonstrations around the site of ICE raids. In May, for example, armed federal agents stormed 2 popular Italian restaurants in San Diego looking for undocumented workers. They handcuffed staff members. They took Luigi. It's a me, all right. They probably did not do that, but at any rate, the point is it was foolish of them to do this. Raiding 2 popular Italian restaurants in San Diego looking for undocumented workers. They handcuffed staff members and took 4 people into custody. Everybody had to have their day interrupted. Diners, everybody for 4 people. And they probably got the wrong 4. As they did so, an outraged crowd gathered outside, chanting shame, and for a time blocking the agents from leaving. Under Trump's order, the military could target these people as insurrectionists. And that's you, folks. The administration, after all, has every reason to want to intimidate those who might take part in civil disobedience. Violent protests play into its hands. Peaceful ones threaten the absurd narrative it's trying to bludgeon America into accepting. Yes, although if they end up on ABC television as labeled as violent, no matter what you do, then I don't know. Might as well go for it, I guess. Just look at the lengths to which it's going to silence David Huerta, the president of the Service Employees International Union of California. Last week, Huerta was arrested after sitting on a sidewalk and blocking a gate while protesting an immigration raid at a work site in Los Angeles. Now, people get arrested for those things all the time, but they're out in a matter of hours. Perhaps 24, but a matter of hours. You can't arrest the guy and keep him. Now, he has been released, but only yesterday, as I understand it. While he was being detained, he was knocked to the ground, resulting in his hospitalization. On Monday, the Justice Department charged him with, quote, conspiracy to impede an officer, a felony that they pointed out carries a maximum prison term of 6 years. Trump also on Monday called for the arrest of Newsom. If you saw all this in any other country, soldiers sent to crush dissent, union leaders arrested, opposition politicians threatened, it would be clear that autocracy had arrived. The question now is whether Americans who hate tyranny can be roused to respond. No, of course not. All the people with We the People tattoos are conducting the ICE raids. What do you know? That's my own addition, of course. She didn't say that. Many people have speculated that the confrontation in Los Angeles will play into Trump's hands, allowing him to pose as a champion of law and order, bringing criminal mobs to heel. Maybe they're right. Trump is a master demagogue with a gift for creating the scenes of conflict his supporters crave. We now know that Dr. Phil was on the ground with ICE during the raids that set off the Los Angeles unrest, filming a primetime special. The administration appeared to want a spectacle, you think? Public opinion, however, isn't set in stone, which is why it's important for everyone who has a platform, I guess we do, politicians, veterans, cultural and religious leaders, podcasters, to denounce the administration's authoritarian overreach. I hereby denounce the administration's authoritarian overreach. I'm good now. I stayed in the union. Administration officials like Stephen Miller are pushing the idea that Los Angeles is, quote, occupied territory, as evidenced by the foreign flags that some protesters are carrying, unlike the ones that were being carried at the January 6th insurrection. Americans who still have hope for democracy should be saying, as loudly and as often as they can, that this is an insultingly stupid lie, yes, to justify a dictatorial power grab. Maybe it will turn out that the truth is no match for right-wing propaganda, but if that's the case, we were already lost. I do like the first part of that. This is an insultingly stupid lie. I don't know, something about saying to justify a dictatorial power grab that makes people then roll their eyes. But I mean, you can probably latch on to the idea of just the first part. This is an insultingly stupid lie that this guy here, Stephen Miller.
Bald asshole.
Right, yeah, that's the guy. Has just, I mean, go on TV, get in debate with him. And when
bald asshole
says this is an insurrection, a rebellion against the authority of the United States, say it. This is an insultingly stupid lie. There's no more truth to this than there is hair on your head. You
bald asshole.
Right. I think you should say that. Go ahead. Go for it. It's worth remembering that in 2020, when Trump went to St. John's Church for a photo op after the U.S. Park Police and Secret Service officers had tear-gassed protesters, he was widely condemned by both religious leaders and former high-ranking military officers, forcing the administration onto the defensive. A poll conducted a little later found that 2/3 of Americans blamed him for increasing racial tensions. It is not a given that disorder favors Trump, especially when it's clear that he's the one instigating it. But there need to be strong voices countering his blunt fictions. Now, I think some people would probably argue with me, saying if you go on TV and you actually say to Stephen Miller's face, you are a
bald asshole
and should shut the F up, that people will say, well, now you're undermining the cause. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to think this one through. I won't be on TV anytime soon to try this. But people will say, oh, he resorted to, name calling. That's outrageous. But I think it might, I don't know, it might cut through all of the clutter and show the level of anger. Although it might not be necessarily the thing to do as, an Eastern white guy 3,000 miles from the unrest. So maybe it's not up to me to do it. But I can at least say it's a shockingly stupid and insultingly stupid lie and get away with that, I think, because I am being lied to. I'm involved in that part of it. Anyway, let's finish this up. Yes, America has lurched to the right since Trump's first term, and he can get away with abuses now that would have set off mass outrage then. Plenty of Democrats, burned by the backlash against Black Lives Matter and large-scale illegal immigration, would rather not have a fight over disorder in Los Angeles. 4 months, not four, F-O-U-R, but F-O-R, for months, Democrats, scarred by the politics of the issue, sought to sidestep President Donald Trump's immigration wars, focusing instead on the economy, tariffs, or in the case of deportations, due process concerns, reported Politico. Okay. But there's no sidestepping a president deploying the military in an American city based on ludicrous falsehoods about a foreign invasion, and therefore illegal, right? Indeed, it's hard to think of a clearer signpost on the road to dictatorship. This Saturday, on Trump's birthday, he's planning a giant military parade in Washington, ostensibly to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary. Tanks have been photographed en route to the city. The Lincoln Memorial standing tragically in the background. I think she meant the Washington Monument, but like an image from some Hollywood dystopia. On that day, there will be demonstrations all over the country under the rubric No Kings. I desperately hope that Trump's attempt to quash protest ends up fueling it. Those who want to live in a free country may be scared, but they shouldn't be cowed. And as I was reading, the reminder that this is, on Saturday, the No Kings demonstrations. And yes, you can go and find the locations of a demonstration near you. It's very easy. They're all over the country, and there's probably going to be more than they even anticipated now with the events in Los Angeles. But I am reminded they moved, right? Didn't the hockey team in LA used to be the Kings, right? Did they take off for Las Vegas? Is that the group that moved, or are they still there? No, they're still. Is that right? LA Kings. I don't know. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia. I gotta have Los Angeles Kings. All right, yeah, still based in Los Angeles. Who moved to the Raiders? Moved to Las Vegas. I'm out of it. I haven't been watching sports on TV for a long time. Netflix killed sports for me. Not that they don't try to air sports, but all right, never mind all of that. That has nothing to do with anything. But the LA Kings should be out there. Although I don't know if they're going to do it. One, professional sports players, they get some money in their hands and they get conservative. Two, the team plays its home games at Crypto.com Arena, so I don't know whether that's going to work out. The crypto guys seem pretty firmly in Donald Trump's corner. But yeah, what if the LA Kings come out in their jerseys to protest on No Kings Days, ironically enough? They put a little no pin on and go march around and do that. I don't know. The hockey players, is that going to move anybody? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. Anyway, I had another item that I was thinking of breaking out just before our 2-minute break, and I better get to it because the 1-minute break is coming up soon. This, just shifting gears, but Republican vibes, we'll call it, is the connective tissue here. Down in Georgia, let's go down to Georgia, with the devil who went down there looking for souls to steal. Well, there weren't any left, as it turns out, in Georgia. At least not here, at the Georgia GOP convention, where delegates, currently, right now, I'm just checking the date, right? Yes, delegates have passed a resolution to ban Brad Raffensperger from qualifying as a Republican. It's not going to be able to run on the ballot with Republican backing and on the Republican line because, of course, he stood up for the rule of law briefly, in at least one instance. And you may remember the most famous part, in my view, of that entire conversation which is here.
We found a way in other states, Slater. Excuse me.
Excuse me. Yes, please do excuse me. That's all the respect that he had for Brad Raffensperger. Trump couldn't pull himself away from the phone long enough to not fart. But okay. This reported by WABE, apparently a PBS and NPR affiliate down in Georgia, looking for souls to steal. I guess they figured they'd pick some up if the devil couldn't, and sell them to him on eBay, perhaps. So what's happening? Well, I don't know. The headline says it all, really, but let's get the details on the Georgia Republicans denying membership in the party to Brad Raffensperger. Rahul Bali has written this piece for them. And, well, here we go. Delegates at the Georgia GOP convention in Dalton on Saturday passed a resolution that would not allow Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to qualify as a Republican for elected office, with one reason, citing that the elected official, quote, does not have the faith and confidence of the Georgia Republican Party. I guess is this the whole resolution here? Yeah, looks like it. It's not that long. You want to hear it? Do I have a Georgia accent to do this? And I don't know. Anyway, whereas, freedom of association means, wasn't it? I can't remember anymore whether it was something I did on the air yesterday or in some of the pre-recorded stuff for later, but I was just thinking about the kind of people who show up. Oh yeah, it was for pre-recorded thing. I was doing a Curtis Yarvin thing, but the kind of people who show up in court with a Merriam-Webster dictionary. Well, this is the ultimate logic, right? The Webster's defines XYZ as, and so therefore your interpretation, well, that doesn't actually help. Webster's dictionary really not huge and weighty authority in a courtroom. But anyway, whereas freedom of association means that it would be unconstitutional for legislation or politicians to require the Georgia Republican Party to associate with any person that the Georgia Republican Party deems repugnant to its brand or to the principles of the United States of America. And so got a little bit of freedom of association, traces in there, I guess. That's not what freedom of association means in totality or even in part, but okay. What you're trying to say is freedom of association means that you can decide who you associate with and who you don't. I get it. And whereas the Georgia Republican Party will lose elections if its brand is not maintained, maybe, therefore, it is resolved that the Georgia Republican Party shall not qualify, allow to be qualified, or take any action to allow Brad Raffensperger to qualify as a Republican or run for any elected office unless and until a Georgia GOP convention removes this restriction, and be it further resolved that the Georgia Republican Party shall fully defend against any future litigation or legal action taken by Brad Raffensperger or others that in any way claims that the Georgia Republican Party is or can be required to allow Brad Raffensperger to run for public office as a Republican. I mean, why don't you just say that? Why do you have to justify it by saying, well, whereas there's a definition somewhere out there about freedom of association? You can just say you're just going to Bigfoot him off of the ballot. Go ahead. Have that fight. By the way, no mention whatsoever of why they think Brad Raffensperger damages the brand or is contrary to the principles of either the party or the United States. We're all supposed to guess, and I think we all know what the guess is, but the tough guys would not just come out and say it. Whereas freedom of association says we can associate with whoever we want to, right? No dispute there. And we are choosing not to associate with Brad Raffensperger. Therefore, be it resolved, we're not associating with him. And we'll pay for any lawsuits that he files to say we have to associate with him. Okay, but where are you going to, and when are you going to say why this is happening? I'm not, because of my courage. Anyway, before the resolution's passage, convention delegate Carter Mitchell of Bibb County spoke to WABE about why he supported it. This is over issues with the mostly Dominion voting machines. I don't know how kind of accent he has. He may have a twangy northern accent. I don't know. Where's Bibb County? I was going to look it up, but we don't need to know. Anyway, this is what this is about. Well, Dominion voting machines, something, Yargo Bargo. His role as Secretary of State of Georgia, he said, this is, I think, a very relatively popular amendment or resolution. They said I could call it either one, I guess. Mitchell says he is not anti-machine when it comes to voting, just against Georgia using Dominion voting machines. Sure, that's what it is. As for whether the party can ban a candidate from the Republican ballot, Mitchell did not stray away from staunch support of the resolution. I mean, I guess they can. I don't know if I disagree even with that. Well, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the Georgia State Convention that does it, he noted. Speaking after the convention ended on Saturday, newly elected, or rather re-elected, party chair Josh McCoon, it's McKoon, said that while the resolution represents the sense of the convention delegates, the party must follow the law. Oh, well, and the law of the state of Georgia is pretty clear with regards to qualifying. So if someone submits the appropriate paperwork, including the loyalty oath, unless there is a case to be made that the loyalty oath would involve false swearing, I don't really see a way for the Georgia Republican Party to decline someone the opportunity to qualify, McCoon said, and that may be right. A significant portion of the opposition to McCoon's re-election came from activists who continue to raise concerns about the state's voting machines and advocate for the state to switch to hand-marked paper ballots. I suspect there's more to it than that. Regarding the resolution, it claims that it would be unconstitutional to force the party to accept the candidate. It also calls on the party to defend itself against any legal action that comes up. Raffensperger's office had no comment on the resolution. The Secretary of State has not announced his plans for 2026, which may include running for re-election or running for U.S. Senate or for governor of Georgia. I don't mind that they're having fights over whether or not he should qualify for the ballot, but I'm certainly in favor of the Republican Party being able to pick their own candidate. But if they pick Raffensperger, then yeah, they may be stuck with it. But I don't know. I don't know what the rules of the party are. I don't know what the law requires. But I'm glad that they're setting themselves up for this fight, and I hope it destroys them. Well, what can I tell you? I really do. Brad Raffensperger, though, do I really care what happens to Brad Raffensperger himself? Not really. I mean, did he do the right thing? Yes. Does he deserve to be, deserve special mention for it? It was the minimum required, but it was a tough situation. He was being pressured by the President of the United States. But he stood up and he did the right thing, and that's good. And that's all. I mean, all right, here's your trophy. Does it mean I vote for you for any public office? Probably not. I mean, well, I guess I have to wait and see who you're up against. Maybe there's somebody equally terrible somehow gets nominated for the other slot, but I doubt it. Thanks anyway, pal. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Yeah, so I found the Chad Loader Blue Sky post, and it was, in fact, Erin Burnett on CNN out there saying, displaying LAPD's spent munitions and claiming that protesters were the ones shooting them at police. So I don't know whether there's been any follow-up to figure out whether it was a slip of the tongue or she's just full of it. But, well, the comments in the thread say she's just full of it. So I don't know. We'll find out at some point, I'm sure, in the near future. I don't know how she imagines she's going to get away with saying that the protesters had such weapons. They're pretty expensive and more or less limited to police distribution. Not that I don't think it's possible to get your hands on any as a private citizen. It's just unusual and rare. And if you're going to get yourselves a weapon, it's probably going to be a different one. All right. Let's see. A few other things I wanted to add to the mix here. I think along the lines of what we read from Nico and Michelle Goldberg earlier, Thomas Zimmer chiming in along the same lines here with this post. Essential, he says, that we hold two thoughts in our head at the same time. There is no doubt the Trumpists want an authoritarian police state, and the situation is acutely dangerous, but being lawless does not make Trump omnipotent. It was an interesting twist. I thought at first, seeing lawless in these things, I worry that, oh no, it's yet more notes from afar about how to conduct yourself in an ongoing protest, which probably not going to be read by anybody at the protest, who's then going to stand up and say, listen, just everybody needs to know this new directive here. Please do not do the following things that people on Blue Sky say they disapprove of from 2,000, 3,000 miles away. But no, he's talking about the lawlessness on the Trump administration side. So this is interesting. And more to Nico and Michelle's points. I'm very familiar with the two of them now, so we're on a first name basis. There is no doubt that Trumpists want an authoritarian police state, and the situation is acutely dangerous. But being lawless does not make Trump omnipotent. Obscuring that distinction is an act of defeatism that only serves the regime. He goes on here. Well, what's he talking about? He's got a Jamel Bowie post as his exhibit here. And I can't imagine that Jamel Bowie is engaging in this defeatism, but maybe he's responding to it. Jamel says, there seems to be a strange Green Lantern theory of fascism that some people on this website have internalized, in which the White House's desire for martial law, its desire for organized repression, is tantamount to a guarantee that it will happen. My big point in all of this is not these things are impossible, but that even the most ambitious authoritarians have to contend with institutional constraints, questionable internal support and loyalty, and the decision-making of ordinary people within and outside the government. All right, and he's immediately met with good point and important for sanity to keep this in mind, and I agree with that, and I agree with that assessment. So I guess Zimmer is just saying, okay, yeah, Jamel's pointing out the correct point of view. Stop, occasionally you say things like, well, this is wildly illegal for Trump to be doing, and he didn't go through proper channels and he didn't do the paperwork. Okay, fine, but the troops are on the ground. And LOL laws, and I have the inclination for saying such things all the time anyway, but the truth is, yes, eventually, and I mean, that's the problem with it, eventually, you can very often vindicate your rights and declare the whole thing to have been illegal, dismiss charges that were filed against people, release them from prison, remove the troops, etc. But for the moment, they're there. And if they're beating you over the head, it still hurts despite the fact that law is on your side. But that's always been the case. Always. And yet, even during periods in which we say we have the rule of law and nobody is trying to establish an authoritarian state except, fringe weirdos are saying, okay, Obama is trying to become a fascist dictator because police hit me over the head. Well, in the moment, that's the reality of it. You have to vindicate your rights after the fact, and that kind of sucks. You can't just hold up the Constitution at police and they say, oh, like kryptonite, holding up a cross to a vampire or something. That's true. It doesn't work like that. But Zimmer goes on to say, there is a vast gulf between Trump's authoritarian aspirations and whatever right-wing propaganda wants us to believe on the one hand. Oh, God, everything's now highlighted because I moved my cursor around. And the realities of a complex modern state and pluralistic society on the other. And in that space, politics continues, possibilities to resist and push back exist. We must resist the temptation to perpetuate Trump's constant attempts to assert dominance by reflexively despairing over our supposedly hopeless situation. MAGA desires to protect power and strength, something we should subvert rather than perpetuate. Let's not indulge the false bravado. I don't think anyone can plausibly accuse me of having overly rosy outlook on the current situation. I'm closer to the opposite, but we must not give in to either cynicism or defeatism and instead resist the temptation to perpetuate right-wing assertions of democracy's supposedly inevitable fall. I guess my space in all of that is to say, all right, while it doesn't erase the presence of the police or the troops to say that it's wildly illegal and stupid pretext for them to be there, we can at least say, well, and so everybody should understand that this is, like Nico says, just part of Trump's technique. They just do things and then they name a law and then everybody argues. I mean, we don't want to spend all of our time arguing about, no, that law isn't even nearly applicable to this situation. But we do want to remind everybody that they are lying, they are making up stories. And so when you're out there protesting, you have a point. It may not make the bad guys go away, but it doesn't mean you're not right. And you should be out there. And you should not say, well, LOL, YOLO, nothing matters. And I mean, that may end up being where we are for the next couple of years. It'll seem the same way, but hopefully eventually all of this gets vindicated. Whether or not any of the people perpetrating these horrors ever actually meet accountability for it, I don't know. But unless you never want the tide to turn, you're going to have to be out there insisting that it should, is basically what it comes down to. Even if it feels impotent in the face of clubbing over your head. Okay, let's see. Other things to share with you that are floating around and that require some attention. Let's see. I think we got all of the top line morning chatter news that I was able to grab up. A few other things still linger, and it might be worthwhile to add them into the mix. Here, I have what now seems like ancient history, I guess, but is really only a June 7th, or at least updated on June 7th piece, but it traces to the weekend, perhaps. But it's the inside the battles that shattered Trump and Musk's alliance. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this is happening. And after all, in the world where you can always find somebody to say anything is a distraction from something else. The LA situation don't pay attention. It's a distraction from the big beautiful bill, from the dodgy antics in DC, or the fight between Trump and Musk is a distraction from some part of all of that. I don't know. Everything's a distraction from something, but I thought I'd put this one out there just because it's still happening and we want to monitor various things, and it's context for everything else. Even if everything else is a distraction, it's a distraction from something. What is that thing? That's part of the context. Why are they distracting me? It's important for me to know. For me to believe that your claim that it's a distraction is valid, I have to know what is the thing you think they're trying to distract me from, and can I balance it against what I think is a serious issue, but you say is a distraction. Ready? Inside the battles that shattered Trump and Musk's alliance. Trump called Musk a big-time drug addict in a phone call shortly after their public feud. We heard that news a couple days ago. This, though, a major effort on behalf of the Washington Post by Kat Zakrzewski, Natalie Allison, Elizabeth Dwoskin, Jeff Stein, and Emily Davies. They got everybody on this one. President Donald Trump was dejected, boo-hoo, processing his very public split with the world's richest man. Rattled in the wake of Elon Musk's public attacks and apparent call for his impeachment, Trump worked the phones, although that's just a regular day for him, debriefing close confidants. This is actually kind of sane-washing his manic phone behavior. And casual acquaintances alike, his former ally was a big-time drug addict, Trump said at one point as he tried to make sense of Musk's behavior. According to a person with knowledge of the call, who, like others interviewed for this article, spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive matters. We're now getting anonymous sources from inside the room when he's calling his friends crying. Well, that's the way he conducts the presidency, so sorry. Musk has acknowledged using ketamine, a powerful anesthetic, which he says was prescribed for him to treat depression. Why is he depressed? He's got $300 billion. I don't know. There's no logic to depression. Sorry. It doesn't have to make sense. The New York Times recently reported that he was using so much ketamine on the campaign trail that he told people it was affecting his bladder, and that's good reason to be depressed. By the way, he also may be just lying about the depression. You have to add that in as a possibility. And he traveled with a pill box with medication with the marking of Adderall. And by the way, it's not mentioned by any of the insiders with knowledge of the information here, but if he's taking so much ketamine that it's affecting his bladder, he's traveling with a box of pills, yes, almost certainly. But he's also traveling with a box of adult diapers as well, in all likelihood. So, why not throw that in there? if you're blabbing to the press. Anyway, White House officials said that Trump's concern about Musk's drug use, stemming in part from the media reports, was one factor driving the two men apart, and the other was that he was probably stealing Trump's diapers. Anyway, I think that's fact. That's based on my interviews with the person with no knowledge of the situation, which is me, but I don't want you to know that I'm anonymous. Thank you, because I fear retaliation from myself or from you, the listener. But that the president, who historically hasn't hesitated to fire off deeply personal, blistering social media posts about others who have insulted him or taken his diapers, was more muted regarding Musk than friends and advisors expected. In the aftermath of his Thursday face-off with Musk, he urged those around him not to pour gasoline on the fire. But RFK urged people to drink the gasoline to cure cancer. According to two people with knowledge of his behavior, he told Vice President J.D. Vance to be cautious in how he spoke publicly about the Musk situation. But although the break between Musk and Trump only exploded into public view on Thursday, cracks in the alliance began to appear much earlier. As Musk's move fast and break things bravado complicated the White House's ambitions to remake American society, if that's what it was, the billionaire alienated key members of the White House staff, including Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and quarreled with cabinet members, physically coming to blows with one. That is exciting. This account of the unraveling of the alliance between Trump and Musk is based on interviews with 17 people with knowledge of the events, including many who spoke on condition of anonymity to talk candidly about sensitive conversations. White House officials say Trump has remained focused on his legislative and cost-cutting agenda. He doesn't have a legislative agenda. One bill. He actually calls it the one big, beautiful bill. One agenda item. But this all, even as the battle between the two men has riveted Washington and I guess necessitated having a battle in Los Angeles instead, for those of you who subscribe to the distraction theory. President Trump and the entire administration will continue the important mission of cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from our federal government on behalf of taxpayers, and the passage of the one big beautiful bill is critical to helping accomplish that mission, said Caroline Leavitt in a statement. Behind closed doors, however, retaliation against Musk has been the topic of conversation among administration officials. Trump, on Truth Social, has called for public scrutiny of Musk's government contracts, potentially imperiling his business empire. Republicans, meanwhile, are wary of how the world's richest man could use his deep coffers to retaliate against them, especially as he floats the launch of a third political party, doing Ross Perot all over again, apparently. I feel like the kids of a bitter divorce when you're just saying, I really wish mommy and daddy would stop screaming, Senator Ted Cruz said on his podcast Friday. United States Senator with time for a podcast. What do you know? Anyway, I thought that was interesting. And also just pointing out for the last couple of days, Trump is, we're going to take away government contracts from Elon Musk. We're going to arrest the governor of California. Just the most wild garbage you ever saw. And nobody questioning whether he's, losing it for some reason. Musk arrived in Washington in January as Trump's most powerful ally, spending nights in the Lincoln bedroom while serving as a top White House advisor, but there was not much of a honeymoon period as Musk's brute force tactics, lack of political acumen, and ideological differences with the MAGA base eroded his relationship with top administration officials, and eventually with the president. The first signs of trouble emerged in February when an email landed in inboxes throughout the government directing federal employees to describe their 5 accomplishments over the past week. Cabinet officials and other agency leaders weren't given advance notice of the memo, causing consternation at the highest levels of Trump's administration. When officials learned the email had gone to some federal district judges who are not even part of the executive branch, and others who handle confidential information, the feeling grew that Musk fundamentally misunderstood the federal government or did not have the dexterity to maneuver through it, or really was on serious amounts of drugs, or all three. Despite the tension, Trump and his deputy chief of staff, Stephen Miller, stuck by Musk's side, but Wiles grew increasingly agitated about the clashes between Musk's U.S. dodgy service and other administration leaders as Musk and his dodgy team attempted to slash federal grants, dismiss federal bureaucrats, and shutter the U.S. Agency for International Development. He became a line of attack for Trump's political opponents, At demonstrations across the country, signs that read "No one voted for Elon Musk" began to appear among protesters as they took to the streets. On April 1st, the first major referendum on Musk arrived. Musk had flooded Wisconsin with cash to boost the Trump-aligned candidate in a race for the seat on the state's Supreme Court. He lost badly. A wake-up call for Republicans who began to recognize that Musk had gone from political risk to liability. See also losing the D.C. Bar Association vote 91 to 9% for Pam Bondi. Anyway, there's a real recognition in the White House and on the Hill that the Elon brand has a real political problem, one person familiar with the politician's thinking said. At the same time, Musk, like many other business leaders, was growing disillusioned with Trump's economic policies, because there weren't any. On April 2nd, from April 1st all the way to April 2nd, when the president rolled out tariffs intended to remake the global economy, a little saying washing there, Musk took to X to express his displeasure with the levies and called Trump's trade advisor and longtime ally Peter Navarro a moron. Well, that's all true, but yeah, can we give a moment to remake the global economy? No. It wasn't going to remake anything. It was going to destroy things. It was going to make nothing. Make a mess, that's really it. Boy, that is kind of sane washing, don't you think? In private, Musk made personal appeals to Trump to reverse the tariffs. Trump did not comply, only relenting days later after a steep decline in bond markets. I'm going to remake the economy by destroying the bond market. Sure. Not long after, Musk's tension with Trump's trade team devolved into blows. And it really does blow. So it's not surprising that it would devolve into blows, like they said, in an altercation with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Is he like the tallest guy they've got or something? Why him? Anyway, that, according to Stephen K.G.B. Bannon, the influential right-wing podcaster and longtime political advisor to Donald Trump and lover of Vladimir Putin, I guess. In mid-April, Musk and Bessent had gone into the Oval Office to make their respective cases for their preferences for acting IRS commissioner. What kind of IRS commissioner?
Acting!
Yes, acting IRS commissioner. Trump decided to support Bessent's choice. That disagreement was first reported by the New York Times. But what an interesting scene just in general. Like, we're going to have an open debate. Let's go in there and make your respective cases. How'd that go? Well, for one thing, Bessent won. But for another, after Bessent and Musk exited the Oval Office and began walking down the hallway, the two men started to exchange insults. Bannon said he was told, adding that Bessent brought up Musk's claim that he would uncover more than $1 trillion in wasteful and fraudulent government spending, which Musk had not succeeded at doing. Remember, by the way, the claim on the campaign trail was $2 billion. Then they said, all right, half of that, $1 billion. 10% of that. Okay. Scott said, "You're a fraud. You're a total fraud," Bannon said in an interview. I don't know whether he knows that he said that, but that's what he says he said. Musk then rammed his shoulder into Bessent's rib cage, quote, like a rugby player, which I guess a South African might be, Bannon said, and Bessent hit him back. How so? I'd love to know. I slapped him on his back. I don't know. Did he give him a good shot? Was it a knee to the face? I'd love to know. Multiple people stepped in to break up the scrum, because it's rugby, as the two men reached the National Security Advisor's office and Musk was shuffled out of the West Wing. Now, was this a maul or a scrum? It wasn't an organized scrum. It was either a ruck or a maul, rather than a scrum. A scrum, of course, would have required Bessent's willing participation to engage, of course, in organized fashion. But that's only makes sense if you follow the rugby game at all. Anyway, and I'm probably wrong, but this neither here nor there. President Trump heard about it and said, "This is too much," Bannon said, and this is a UFC fight guy. Why is it too much? In late April, Musk said he would be pulling back from Washington to focus more on his businesses. Like, I'm spending more time with my family. He's got a huge number of children. Not really the same thing as having a family per se. But when he says he wants to spend more time with his family, he means his family of businesses. And there are, after all, like we said, fewer of them than there are children. But he wanted to spend more time, especially on Tesla, which was struggling. Musk said he would still be spending part of his time in Washington, and his Silicon Valley allies claimed he would still run Dodgy from afar. Although when they're in court, they keep claiming that he doesn't run Dodgy at all. While he was away, however, his opponents within the administration had an opening to undermine him. It involved Jared Isaacman, whom Trump had nominated to be NASA administrator at Musk's urging. Musk's ambition is to colonize Mars, which is kind of a dumb ambition, but, people say that you should have big ambitions, but all right. Anyway, that's a dumb one. And having an ally heading NASA was a major goal for him, but Isaacman had made numerous political contributions to Democratic candidates, a liability in an administration that prizes or prioritizes loyalists. Just over a week ago, on the tech billionaire's final day as a special government employee, Sergio Gore, the director of presidential personnel, armed Trump with printouts showing Isaacman's donations. Trump informed Musk that he was pulling Isaacman's nomination because of concerns over his loyalty. Gore's role was not coincidence. The longtime Trump aide had clashed with Musk throughout the transition, disagreeing on recommendations for appointments. Tensions between the two escalated in March after Musk came to believe that Gore had leaked a story to the New York Times about a meeting in which Musk clashed with multiple cabinet members. According to a person with knowledge of the situation, Musk's suspicions were piqued because the story did not mention his criticism of Gore's office, the person said. That's a good clue. Gore made it known to others that he wanted to retaliate against Musk. Seems unwise, but I guess he got it done. When Trump decided to pull the Isaacman nomination, the decision appeared to be a blow to Musk's ambitions in space. Though, look, even with Isaacman at NASA, you weren't going to Mars, so whatever. Sergio is a vital member of the team, and he has helped President Trump put together an administration that is second to none. White House spokesman Stephen Chung said, as a longtime advisor, there is nobody more capable of ensuring the government is staffed with people who are aligned with the mission to make America great again and work towards implementing the president's agenda. But if he falls down the stairs and dies and he needs somebody else, that guy will be the nobody who's better aligned or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Despite the mounting tensions, Musk and Trump presented a united front that day during a formal send-off for Musk in the Oval Office. But little X wasn't there, right? Where Trump presented him with a ceremonial key. All right, remember he made up that the mayors give out keys to the city. He had them make up fake souvenirs, a key to the White House, and gives it to people for no reason, but at taxpayer expense, so it's important to know. So he gave him a key, hooray, and praised him as, quote, one of the greatest business leaders and innovators the world has ever produced. But just days later, the acrimony between the men exploded on X as Musk attacked Trump's signature legislation, that one thing that he's got, and urged Republican members in Congress not to support it. Senior White House officials tried to play down the impact, insisting that the president already knew where Musk stood on the topic. But Trump's restraint faltered on Thursday during an Oval Office appearance as he told reporters he was, quote, disappointed in Musk and questioned the future of their friendship. Trump said Musk's criticism of the bill was rooted in his concerns that it would eliminate a tax credit for electric vehicle owners that benefited Tesla. Musk denied that accusation and responded with a tirade. In the hours after the blow-up, some in Trump's orbit believed a quick reconciliation was possible, gathering from their own interactions with the president and conversations with each other that he was open to a détente with Musk. But by morning, those prospects had receded. Trump on Friday insisted that he had no interest in speaking with Musk, telling CNN and ABC reporters as much in phone calls and also sharing the sentiment with advisors, according to the White House official. So what does that mean? That, too, is a bit of sane washing. That means he calls reporters in the middle of the night and says, he's begging to make up with me, but I'm not going to do it. He's begging me. He's literally begging me. Please, Mr. President, please. But I'm saying no. I'm just telling you. I'm just calling you in the middle of the night to say that I'm saying no. Put that in the newspaper. Don't put that I was mad. Put that in your newspaper, that I said no. Let's see. Oh, yes. I was wondering what was happening with this one. I actually asked about this on Blue Sky the other day. What happened with Trump's Tesla? Well, he told aides he was considering selling the red Tesla that has been parked outside the White House, I guess, this whole time. A vehicle the White House said he bought, quote, at market rate, in March after Musk displayed several of his vehicles on the White House lawn. There's a million things wrong with that. I have my doubts whether he paid anything. He didn't pay for the plane from Qatar, so he probably didn't pay for the Tesla, and Musk probably didn't care because he's got more money than Trump has. But now Trump is going to symbolically sell the thing. What about selling his granddaughter's Cybertruck? Is that happening? No, probably not. Meanwhile, Musk continued to fan the flames, doubling down on his unsubstantiated claim that Trump was implicated in documents related to the convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think he really has to substantiate that claim. I think everybody knows about their relationship, so no surprise there. He questioned what he had to apologize to Trump for and mused about launching an alternative to the Republican Party, which he's now calling the America Party because of how creative he is. Maybe the X Party is next. There's hope that there's going to be a reconciliation, said one White House ally close to both Trump and Musk worlds, but it'll never be the same. And that's good and fine with me. And time for us to take 2 minutes to contemplate how fine it really is.
Sup fam, it's your boy Darwin, aka Darwin_Darko, aka the most reasonable man in America, aka KITM's senior black correspondent. You might remember me from such recordings as Spacemen vs. Space Cadets and We Need to Talk About Joe Biden. Today, I want to bring you good news about that thing you've been struggling with. Do you suffer from giving too much of a damn? Do you turn on the series of tubes and find yourself outraged at the particular way some news organization strung some sentences together only to realize, nope, this is not some fictional hellscape? Well, guess what? You no longer have to accept the life of giving too much of a damn. You can do something about it, because even you, yes you, can be a show contributor. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Mr. Most Reasonable Man in America, I'm not some professional podcast talking guy. Don't worry about it. Do you have a smartphone or some other electronic recording device? Well, that's all you need. You too can have a segment where you can read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Fair warning though, side effects may include general punditry, having opinions and hot takes, getting stuff off your chest, and hearing your own voice. If your recording lasts longer than 5 to 7 minutes, please consult kagrox@gmail.com. That's KAGROX@gmail.com.
Okay, let's get started once again. Welcome back to the show. And I had a couple of other selections lined up, trying to decide where to go next. And Blue Sky directs me to another topic. Kyle Griffin, I just 7 seconds ago, tweeting out that the news from NBC that Trump's red Tesla is no longer parked outside the West Wing. How sad, right? But that's not what this whole thing is about. This is their ongoing news feed about what's up. What's the latest news from all over the country and all over the administration. But here's the entry from Garrett Hawk, Haake is my best guess. I've seen that name spelled variously, and it's, as far as I know, pronounced Hawk. So anyway, Trump's red Tesla no longer parked outside the West Wing, which should surprise no one. But also, I mean, the fact that it was parked outside the West Wing the whole time. Did anyone ever drive that thing? I'm wondering. Well, let's see what Garrett has to say about it. After reports last week that Trump was considering selling or giving away the red Tesla that he purchased this spring in a show of support for Elon Musk, it was back in the spring when he bought it that was a show of support. This is a show of opposition to give it away or sell it. NBC News White House team has been tracking the location of the vehicle. As of this morning, the car was no longer parked outside the West Wing. Yesterday, the president told inquiring reporters that he may move the Tesla around a little bit. That was decisive, isn't it? Well, are you thinking of selling the Tesla you bought from Elon because you guys are having a falling out? Well, I'm thinking of moving it around a little bit. Oh, wow. Go out on a limb. Wow. So that guy, he's so forceful. He's so strongly strong, the way he makes decisions just instantaneously and just sticks to it. Going to move it around. and that he has a lot of locations at which he could keep it. Wow. As he seemed to dismiss the idea that he intended to offload it entirely. Why? Trump and Musk had a public falling out last week, as you know, following the billionaire tech mogul's criticism of... Don't have to tell you the rest. They had a falling out. The White House did not immediately respond to any requests for comment about what's happening with the Tesla thingamabob. Okay, fine. And so no new news, except that, decisive, strongly strong Trump. The people are coming to me with tears streaming down their eyes saying, sir, if you move the Tesla, could you move it to one spot or not? I don't know. I got a lot of spots I could put it in. That'll teach you, Elon. I could put it in any one of, 100 spots. What? All right. Well, he's completely absent from his own brain. Anyway, I also grabbed this interesting report. People comparing, previous activity in Portland, Oregon to what's going on in Los Angeles and saying, there's precedent for this. But basically Jen Burrell, do we know Jen with two N's? Jen Burrell. Jen is let's see. Oh, I don't know. Just a regular, normal person like you and me. How about that? And she makes the interesting observation. Yeah, good luck housing ICE agents in Los Angeles now. What's going on? This a report from, Los Angeles Magazine. There's a screen grab here that says ICE guys started raiding the hotel they were staying in. That whole thing about don't crap, people sometimes say, where you eat. Though that's not exactly what they say. Don't where you eat, right? Well, it's like they couldn't wait to make arrests, or they get calls from Stephen Miller. Well, I want 5 billion arrests. All right, fine. Well, I don't want to go out and walk down the street. Why don't I just start interrogating the housekeepers here at the hotel that I'm staying in? Wow. Do yourself a favor. At least let them do the job and keep you comfortable. Oh, well. Very stupid people. And here we have a quote from a tweet from Bruno J. Navarro. Bruno is he also a normal, regular, everyday person? Let's go and check. Newsroom veteran. That's so he's got some reporting experience, including with CNBC, Today Show, NBC News, Associated Press, Arizona Republic. So journalist type guy. Who says in the AC Hotel, I don't know what that is, but okay, that's where they were staying. We got word from a staff member that the agents were staying here and questioning the workers that were cleaning their rooms, the workers that were making their food. They were questioning them and asking for ID and in a very aggressive way. So, by the way, once word gets out that ICE guys are staying in the AC Hotel, the first line of defense against people protesting there, or I don't know, whatever else they might decide to do there, perhaps more rowdy or forceful than just simply standing outside and saying the people inside suck, would be the workers at the hotel. But of course, if you alienate them, then it's going to have to be you and your guns versus whoever wants to make trouble for you. But I'm sure they're happy to have that confrontation too. But here is a screen grab from Los Angeles Magazine that reads, "We got alerts that ICE was staying in some of the hotels here in Pasadena," said Jose Madera, director of the Pasadena Community Job Center. Organizers and community members went around to verify, and we identified that in the AC Hotel, the Westin, and in Hotel Dena, D-E-N-A, there were immigration agents. Yeah, you can tell because they all walk around dressed like Bazooka Joe with gaiters over their faces, I guess. Also, tactical vests that are a couple sizes too small, as some wag pointed out earlier today on Blue Sky. That's your uniform. Anyway, there were immigration agents at all these hotels. And in the AC Hotel, we got word from staff members that the agents were staying here and questioning the workers. The workers that were cleaning their rooms, the workers that were making their food. They were questioning them and asking for their ID in a very aggressive way. So that's why our community organizers came here to say we don't want ICE here. We brought elected officials and urged them to not let any ICE agents here. And I think I did see something about the AC Hotel saying out. And that's an interesting tactic. I do like that one. Make it commercially problematic for hotels to agree to house agents, troops, what have you. I also did see, I like the idea of protesters bringing blankets and pillows to the National Guard troops who are sleeping without them in the basements of the federal buildings. I don't know whether it's going to be effective in changing the dynamic at all, but it's certainly more practical, let's say, than trying to put flowers in the barrels of their guns, as used to be the platonic ideal of all this. Anyway, but I like the idea of commercially pressuring it so that and the hotel staff, the hotel management can very easily, like in the case of this AC hotel, can say not that, as I'm sure when Stephen Miller and Trump would then attack them, and they gave into left-wing radical woke theory and kicked our guys out. No. What's happening here is not that we were listening to the protesters, but this guy's harassing our staff. These people are harassing our staff while they're trying to work. We can't run this hotel. They're threatening to handcuff people while they're trying to make their rounds cleaning the rooms. Our other guests are upset. I understand that this is a hobby for these guys and they love harassing immigrants, but we can't run our business this way. That's why you're out of here. You're a troublemaker and you won't stop harassing the staff. That's why we deny you rooms. Not because of what the people outside said. Although they're right, we should have listened to them in the first place. Would have saved us a lot of trouble. It's very interesting. And let's see. So Jen Burrell had picked up on that item and commented on Bruno Navarro's reporting, but also this led to other reporters picking up on this and including other stories and saying this is a pattern with these guys. We were pointed back to a piece from October 28th, 2020, demonstrating this pattern. This from, I don't know, what am I looking at? WW. What is this? WWeek.com. What is W Week? Willamette Week. Okay. Thankfully, I remembered how to pronounce Willamette. So, anyways, from Willamette Week back in 2020, a Portland hotel maintenance worker says, this is the headline, that a Homeland Security agent pulled a gun on him when he tried to fix his toilet. But you know how it is with Homeland Security people. They like to let feces remain in their toilets as a matter of tactical practice. They get a tactical advantage on the other guys by having poop in their toilet. I don't know why he would do that. I have never seen a grown man so visibly frightened, the employee's colleague said, and it starts to make me worry that a lot of these guys are like on drugs or something. Anyway, this is reported way back when, in 2020, by Tess Riski, R-I-S-K-I. That's her business. Get it? Anyway, in July of 2020 is when this happened. Federal agents from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security wielded weapons on the streets of Portland to subdue protesters. You remember that. But of course, it was burned to the ground by Antifa super soldiers and no longer exists. There's no Oregon anymore. And that's why we're disputing their electoral college votes. That's coming next. Anyway, in a legal notice filed today, and that was back in October 28th, 2020, a hotel maintenance worker says those military tactics were also deployed on him. On the afternoon of July 27th, Christopher Frison, F-R-I-S-O-N, walked into room 428 at the Residence Inn by Marriott, in North Portland with a plunger in hand, a dangerous, killer explosive plunger. And I mean, you don't want to come in contact with the plunger, but it's not because it's a dangerous weapon. Well, you know what? RFK Jr. says it's fine. Lick it if you want to. It's fine. There's no such thing as germs. He was responding to a maintenance request to unclog a toilet, according to a tort claim notice filed October 28th against DHS. Frison, I don't know, who is black. That's the issue. Knocked on the door of 428 and identified himself as maintenance. The guest, and the plunger should have given him away as maintenance. The guest inside the room, a DHS agent, swung open the door, the claim says, and with an aggressive look on his face, pointed a semi-automatic handgun at Frison's chest. Mr. Frison put his hands in the air and prepared to be killed, the tort claim says. And if you're a black guy, yeah, probably. The agent, identified in the tort claim as Joseph Jones, really, Joe Jones, then lowered his handgun and invited Friesen into the room. Friesen declined, though, the claim says. He handed Jones the plunger and left. That's the way to handle it. Friesen then moved quickly past the lobby and walked outside the hotel. On his way out, Friesen passed his colleague, Tim Simon, who works as an administrative assistant at the hotel. Simon followed Friesen outside to ask what happened. His whole body was shaking. Simon wrote in a personal statement that accompanies Friesen's claim, "I had never seen a grown man so visibly frightened. Over the years working with Chris, I have seen him to be a dependable, hardworking employee who's also always level-headed, calm, and doesn't let things bother him. But, being threatened with a gun, that'll do it." Simon sent Friesen home for the rest of the day to decompress. 3 months later, the tort claim says Friesen continues to experience nightmares. His doctors advise him to take time off work to heal from the trauma caused by the incident. You get the idea? All right. So there you have it. Anyway, apparently it's a pattern with these guys. Just one, maybe the work freaks them out. Two, having a gun at hand makes them think they are, everything looks like a nail when all you have is a hammer, right? So a knock on the door. Oh, it's obviously someone come to assassinate me, an Antifa super soldier on his way to burn Portland to the ground, which I claim already happened. So I got to answer the door with the gun out. Now, I guess the DHS guy would say, well, as soon as I saw that he had a plunger and said he was maintenance, I lowered the gun. What's the problem? Whatever, man. But obviously things have escalated to the point now where even without being in a scenario where, geez, I don't know who's at the door, ICE agents are just wandering through the hotels they're staying in and threatening the staff. And then, of course, they'll arrest them at the end and say, well, service was so lousy that we don't need these people in our country anyway. And the service was lousy because I kept threatening to shoot all of them for doing their jobs. It's getting wild out there. But who's getting wild? Once again, it's the cops rioting everywhere in the streets and in the hotels. And maybe that is part of the reason why there's no hotel rooms for the National Guard. Hotel chains don't want anything to do with anybody in authority at this stage of the game. All right. Who knows? It's anyway, it's quickly spinning out of control, but people will say that it's largely happening that way by design, and they may even be right. All right. Let's see. Other things that we might want to read into the record at this point. By the way, the newer entries and by newer, I mean in the last month or so, entries that have been piling up in Pocket are quickly emptying out. I've been recording an awful lot, but now the work becomes, can I hammer them into show shapes and air them in the right time slots and without, chopping it up in weird ways. But now that's left me with a smaller pool of standby stories to share with you. But how about if I throw this one into the mix? We've got from NBC News, I guess, a situation. This is Ryan Riley again. Ryan Riley is all over the place. But he accompanied here on this one by Zoe Richards, who report on an emerging trend also in which the Trump administration accuses all sorts of private actors and now public actors as well of DEI practices because they actually say something as anodyne as, well, we value diversity here, which is a no-no for them. They just do word searches and say, diversity, you value diversity? That's DEI, and DEI is CRT, and CRT is something COVID mask. I don't know, whatever. They just confuse everything. But now if you say the word diversity or say that you'd like to hire some people from a different background so that there are people on hand with whom your constituency or customer base can identify and feel comfortable, that is no longer permitted. Whether you're a private actor, a private university, or a public actor like the Chicago mayor. What is going on here? The Justice Department now says they're going to investigate Chicago, the whole city, after the mayor's remarks about hiring black officials. What? Yes, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, whose name we have mentioned before, as keep an eye on this one because they're going to do stupid things on behalf of President Trump. But here's the first one. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon says she authorized the probe after Mayor Brandon Johnson's comments about hiring prominent black officials for his administration. What? Now, hold on just a second. The Georgia Republican Party says that you have the freedom of association, don't you? Well, no. You are black. Oh, and also you're part of, you are a public servant and an elected official. Therefore, there's no such thing as the Constitution for you, or something like that, right? That's got to make some sense, doesn't it? Guess not. May 19th, actually, is the dateline on this one. It's been waiting around a while. The Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, to the extent it still exists, said on Monday that it was opening an investigation into the city of Chicago after Mayor Brandon Johnson's comments Sunday highlighting prominent black officials in his administration. Not even saying, well, I only hire black people, or even saying I'd like to hire more black people. He just says, I hired some people and they're black. What? Investigation. Not because they're black, but because you said that you were hiring them or that you had hired them and they are black. And so therefore you hired them because they were black and therefore that's a crime and we're investigating you. That's how it goes. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon wrote in a letter to Johnson. Oh, and by the way, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon was not hired because diversity is good. They were hired for other reasons like awesomeness. Well, anyway, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon wrote in a letter to Johnson, which was posted on X, that she had, quote, authorized an investigation. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't, I don't know, into whether Chicago is, quote, engaged in a pattern or practice of discrimination following Johnson's remarks at a church on Sunday. So I'm just pointing out that the Department of Justice is investigating Chicago and its mayor because of what he said in church on Sunday. So just to let you know, yes, they're patrolling your houses of worship. Yes, you will be investigated and harassed based on what you say during your exercise of your First Amendment rights, not only to political speech, but to worship as you please, which is exactly how Republicans would phrase it. Even though he wasn't necessarily giving a sermon, he was making perhaps political commentary. I don't know. But if it happened to a Republican, it would be tyranny and Joe Biden's fault, no matter who was president at the time. If these kinds of hiring decisions are being made for top-level positions in your administration, then it begs the question of whether such decisions are also being made for lower-level positions. Aha! Does not beg that question, but I don't really know if anybody cares what the answer to that question is. What a weird framing. If you're doing this for the top level, imagine what's happening at lower levels. Yeah, but most people are interested in the top level things. Never mind the whole thing being discussed in a church. Johnson said in remarks at Apostolic Church of God that the deputy mayor, the chief operations officer, the budget director, and others are all black people. I can't believe he said that they were black people. Are they? They are? Oh. Well, something's wrong with this, obviously, and not just the fact that they're black people, although that might be sufficient for Harmeet Dillon. I don't know. But what does it tell you? Well, in all likelihood, my guess is the Apostolic Church of God is a black congregation. And he was telling them, you know, it's actually pretty good for all of us here. We've traditionally maybe been scared to deal with the city or something because, you know, back in the days when it was a white mayor and an entirely white administration and there weren't any black faces in the administration to talk to, maybe you had some suspicions about whether or not you should be dealing with the city. Well, you can put all that aside because we got lots of black representation in this city. Aha! You're nailed, says Harmeet Dillon. Okay. Johnson said some of his detractors criticize him by saying the only thing he talks about is the hiring of black people. No. What I'm saying is when you hire our people, we always look out for everybody else, he said. Having people in my administration that will look out for the interests of everyone, and everyone's means you have to look out for the interests of black folks, because that hasn't happened. That's how we ensure long-term sustainable growth. What he's saying here is sometimes in the olden days, the white people only looked out for other white people, or at the very least they said, well, I'm not going to look out for black people. So what's the remedy for that? Not putting black people in who only take care of black people, but putting black people in who will model proper behavior, take care of everyone. Will they also treat black people fairly? Yes. Are they the only people who will? Well, we haven't had a great deal of success with the other folks, but maybe things can change. But in the meantime, I can promise you the people I've put in place, at least you'd like to think, will treat everyone the way they ought to be treated, i.e. equally. That's all he's saying, but time for an investigation. Johnson had also criticized the Trump administration's efforts to wipe us out of history. Black folks will be here in this city and in cities across America protecting this democracy, protecting humanity, because that's what black people have always done, he said. The mayor's office said in a statement that Johnson is proud to have the most diverse administration in the history of our city. Our administration reflects the diversity and values of Chicago. Unfortunately, the current federal administration does not reflect either, the mayor's press office said. Shortly after his second inauguration, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to end what he referred to as radical and wasteful diversity, equity, and inclusion offices and programs in federal agencies, which Chicago is not, right? He also has ordered investigations into hiring practices that he says may favor, that's all it requires, candidates based on their race or gender. That's all it requires in his mind for his order anyway. It's not what the law requires, just what he says. According to the mayor's office, white and black employees are a majority of staff members, with 30.5% of employees identifying as white and 34.3% identifying as black. Johnson's office said that it was aware that the Justice Department had issued a letter and that it was waiting for official receipt and that its corporation counsel would then review it. Mind you, this happened a month ago, so I assume well, you know what? I was going to say I assume they've gotten a letter by now, but again, I'm assuming too much. I'm sane washing this whole thing. I'm going on the assumption that Harmeet Dillon wasn't lying like crazy or just spewing nonsense to try to get in the paper when, I don't even know, Harmeet Dillon. I don't know how does Harmeet Dillon identify? Do we care? I don't know. Let's go look. She. I don't know whether she really intended to send a letter at all. I had some vision in my head of having seen a picture of Harmeet, but for some reason I wanted to actually make sure that I got it right. Just like the mayor here says when he hires black people, they are reliably open to helping everyone regardless of race. That is to say, they're the only ones that will do the right thing. Okay, I'll do the right thing and try to figure out who and what Harmeet Dillon is. Okay, but yes, it's, kind of sane washing the whole thing to say that, oh, of course, the letter has probably arrived by now. She may have had no intention of sending a letter whatsoever. And that's something to keep in mind there. Okay, I've now left my that window, and so now I don't know where the hell things are anymore. Okay, no, I guess I got to keep moving over even further. Got a lot of tabs open. So Johnson said they're aware that they said they issued a letter, and they're waiting to actually get it before they do anything. I don't know what happened. The Civil Rights Division has undergone a major transformation since Dillon took over, to say it mildly, to say it wrong, took over during Trump's second term, with one official calling an onslaught of departures, quote, a complete bloodbath. Let me just point out that's one sentence. The Civil Rights Division has undergone a major transformation since Dillon took over. One official calling it a complete bloodbath. Yeah, that's a major transformation. Neighbors say that Dahmer's victims have undergone major transformations since he killed and ate them. Yes, that is one way of saying it. More broadly, the Justice Department has targeted Trump's perceived political foes since he returned to office for a second term. In January, the Justice Department said it terminated several attorneys from the former special counsel Jack Smith's office who played roles in Trump's prosecution over his handling of classified documents and his conduct tied to the January 6th Capitol riot. It's in the article, so I'm reading it for lack of anything else to do at the end of the show. But what does it have to do with anything? Well, it's in the Justice Department. Is it the Civil Rights Division? It is not. Is it useful information? It is. Let's finish up. Trump has issued executive orders going after major law firms, you know about that have been involved in suing him or his administration. He also authorized Attorney General Pam Bondi to recommend rescinding attorneys' security clearances or ending federal contracts with law firms if she found their lawsuits against the administration unreasonable or vexatious. There's no sense that I get that he understands what vexatious means, but what can you do? All right, we finally reached the end of this article. It's an interesting inclusion in the end there, but just to add this to the roster of events that the Department of Justice and the administration in general have been in meddling in affairs in which they have no authority under the guise of fighting DEI, which isn't even a thing that they understand. And, so they're going to investigate Chicago because the mayor said, I think I'm hiring people that people will be comfortable working with and that they'll trust to be fair. Oh, no, federal investigation. That's kind of where we are. All right, that's it for our Tuesday entry. Greg Dworkin will join us tomorrow and keep us on track with the news of the day for our last live show of the week. But continuing all week, of course, to bring you the news from around the country and around the world, Justice Putnam and the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy up next, in fact, right now, with the stories like over 300 National Institute of Health employees have published the Bethesda Declaration in dissent of Trump's administration's health policies. Find out more about that. Plus, of course, RFK Jr.'s top aide now attacking the U.S. health system while running a company that promotes untested wellness alternatives.
To Kagro in the morning.
And that may be putting it mildly.
David Waldman.
Because I read this morning on social media, and I didn't grab the stuff, but we'll have to be talking about it soon, I'm sure, that something about what RFK Jr. is saying in public is encouraging what is apparently known as the bleach community, a community of people who insist that bleach solutions are cures for what ails you as opposed to what kills you.